Jimbob and I were recently having a discussion about materialism and the physicality of propositions, when of course his transphobia would inevitably steer the conversation in that direction and derail us for about 40 minutes until Andrew Wilson, of all people, joins the stream unexpectedly and challenges me to have a debate on sex, gender, and trans issues. So without any further ado, I want to play just a couple snippets from that initial discussion with Jimbob and then just air the rest of the conversation with Andrew Wilson unedited. And then maybe I'll upload the entire unedited conversation with Jimbob and Andrew at a later point. Also, I am still on the road, so I did call into Jimbob's stream just on my phone at a rest stop. So my audio is not the best, and there was like a couple second delay on my end, just a little bit of lag. So sorry about that, guys, but that's the explanation for why I'm like literally in the middle of Idaho. Anyway, enjoy.
Grayson,
Okay, what?
can I ask you a question? If I'm born as a biological man and I identify as a biological male. Yeah. If I was born as a biological male but identify as a man, am I trans?
No,
What? Why not?
you're cis.
What do you mean?
If you're born as a male and you identify as a man, you are cis.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Cisgender.
Can a
You're not.
Okay. Okay. So why am I cis if you're equating man and male?
I'm not
thought you can't
equating
equate those
them.
things.
Again, man is the gender that's typically associated with the sex male.
So what is a man that's not
equating.
Yeah, but what's a man not typically associated with male then? Is that still a man?
Yeah, it's still a man. It's just a trans man. It's a man
No.
who was born biologically
No.
female.
No, hold on a second. You're saying a man is something typically associated with a male, right?
A man is
Can
a
a-
gender typically associated with someone whose sex
Can
is
a-
male.
Great. Can a man in another culture be typically associated to a female biologically?
Can a man
A man
gender
be typically, is it
typically
possible for a
associated
culture?
with a female? Sure. There could be
Yeah.
a culture where all of the biological females are treated masculine and all of the biological males are treated feminine. It'd be a very
Great.
weird culture, but sure, it's possible.
Great. So if a male is not identical to
You
a
have some
man.
weird hypotheticals, dude.
No, I don't. No, these are actually good hypotheticals.
Yes, you do.
Here's why. Here's
No,
why
these
they're
are very
here's-
weird questions, Jimbo.
saying they're weird is not a refutation, and it doesn't actually
No,
deal
it's
with
not.
the
It's
logical
just
problems.
It's just an observation, bro. It's just an observation. It's just weird questions, man. I've never
Well,
thought
no,
about
they're
this
good
shit. You're asking
questions.
me about weird hypothetical cultures. And
It's
gender.
well, no,
Like, this
no.
sounds like
How
science
is
fiction.
it? Hey, base. How is it weird if your definition of a man is based on culture?
Bro, that ain't weird. Like, definition of man being based on culture is normal. That's
Okay,
not
great.
weird.
Okay,
It's weird
great.
for you to be
Based.
asking me about,
Based.
like, some
Based.
weird made-up culture.
Based.
Yeah.
If it's not weird, right? If
Just call me
you're
Grayson, dude.
Grayson, if your statement is that a man or a woman is defined by culture, I don't know how it's weird for me to ask, well, then is it possible for a culture to develop a gender that's called man that's typically associated with females? I mean, it's a fair question. How is that a
Bro,
weird
if
question?
you do not see that as a weird question, you're beyond help. If you can't see why that's weird,
Really?
we can just move on. Because
Okay.
yeah, dude. That's
Okay, it's weird. It's. I don't think it's weird because if it's logically consistent
It's
with
a
your
weird-ass
definition
question,
of a man.
That's all.
Great. So what distinguishes a man from a male then? If it's typically associated from a man, but it's not identical, what's the distinction?
Like, male is primary sex characteristics, and man is typically associated with secondary sex characteristics, as well as social and cultural aspects, as well as psychological aspects about your own identity.
I would like.
Sensitive enough.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I would like to discuss this with you. I think I can change your mind. We can have a good faith exchange. If that's okay with you, I'll give you plenty of speaking time, and I just ask for Jimbob to moderate fairly while we have this discussion. Is that all right with you, sir?
This is Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know who I am, right? You know I'm not your biggest fan, but I would be down to have a discussion depending on what the topic is, if we could stay to that topic.
Well,
And
it's going to be
also,
this. It's going to be this topic. So I'd like to get into these ideas that you have on gender and sex. So
okay.
so let's do that if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah. Can you email me or Jimbob?
No. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. Let's just do it right now. So,
okay.
So
it'll be 10 minutes. It'll be 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Just so you know, my battery
Mhm.
is at 24%, but I will try to find a place to plug in right now.
All right. Well, 24% ain't that low.
Yeah.
So let's dive into this. My first question to you is, let's see if we can first let's see if we can untangle two concepts, and then I'll ask my first question. Concept one is a product of the mind, which is not real. That's concept one. And then a reality or truth of the matter, which is concept two. Would you agree with me that if I claimed that I was the king of France, that could be true in my head, but would you say that would be true in reality?
Yeah, obviously not.
Okay, what would make it not true in reality?
You don't have any of the defining necessary criteria that would be sufficient to make you the king of France.
That seems totally reasonable to me. And so, like, what are some of those characteristics that would make me the king of France? What would that entail?
I don't know. I assume that there's some kind of official paperwork involved.
Well, and probably I give orders and people follow the orders, and I'm in charge of the country and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, if I were to make the claim that I was a female, would the fact of the matter reflect that I was a female?
Is there any biological information about you?
Yeah, I'm XY chromosome. I have gonads. I'm by all biological metrics a male. So if I claim that I was a female,
biological metrics,
mm-hmm.
If by all biological metrics, then you're a male. Then if you say you're a female, then that would not be true.
Okay, so then I just have to ask this one question. If I claimed I was a woman and what woman meant was adult female, what would make that statement true?
What do you mean? What would make that statement true? Like,
what would make the statement true?
And woman was referring to female sex.
Yeah, it was referring to adult female. What would make that statement true?
Your primary sex characteristics matching those of female.
Okay, so as a male, if I say that I am a woman, by my definition, that would be a false statement, correct?
If you're defining woman as sex instead of gender, then yes.
Yes. Okay. So gender, you agree with me, is a construction of the mind, right? Does not exist in material reality. It exists as a construction of the mind.
I'm not sure how long you've been listening to this conversation. We've been going on for a while, but I am a physicalist. I do think that there is a physical activity going on for most mental activities, thoughts, concepts, that kind of stuff.
Oh, sure. It did, but in the same way that if I said I was the king of France, you've already agreed with me that could not be true in material reality.
So you can.
So hang on, in my mind. I want to make sure we can agree on this quick point.
I think we can.
I want to make sure we can clarify. Okay.
Let me clarify. Your brain can generate the false identity that you're the king of France. And your brain can also generate your gender identity. All of us have.
Right. But what would make that? But what would make that true? What would make that true, though?
What would make it true? Your gender.
What would make the gender identity? If you say I'm a woman, right? If you say in reality you can in your mind be the king of France, which I don't disagree with, but in material reality you cannot be because it doesn't match the criteria for what the King of France is, then utilizing the same logic, why is it that if I claim that my gender is X and I am the real X thing, why would that be true?
Yeah. No, I got what you're asking. So I think that you can be, like, if you make a statement, I'm male, I'm female, you're making a statement about your sex, that statement can be true or false. But if you're making a statement about your gender identity and you're not lying about it, like you're genuinely saying the genuine product of your brain, I don't think that statement can be true or false, because it's like saying, like,
well, then how come the King of France, then how come the King of, wait, then why can the King of France statement be true or false?
Because the King of France designation is not a social designation based on.
It's totally a social designation based.
It's not.
Yes, it's a complete social designation based on identity. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When you don't let me finish my sentence.
Okay, let him finish. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Bro, I didn't cut you off. I just clarified.
So go ahead. France simply because you declare that you are the King of France. That's not how that identity works. That identity has to be bestowed upon you by the proper authorities, right?
No, you can take it. No, you can take it. You can just take that identity.
Take
like
what?
you can just strong arm France and become the King of France. Like, it doesn't have to be bestowed upon you. People can even disagree with you, so right? They can even say that you're not.
Come on, you're resorting to absurdity now. You're saying if you have
wait. Can you explain? Wait, why would that be absurd? We're talking about identity.
Come on.
Come on, it's not an argument. No, I don't.
Hold on, BPF. Hold on, Grayson. Can you tell us how it's logically absurd, not just that you think it's weird?
Yeah, what's wrong with it?
Okay,
I don't understand.
Okay.
Seems like
can you tell us how it's Can you tell us how it's logically? Can you tell us how it's logically absurd?
Let's not be pedantic. I'm being colloquial.
No, that's what absurd means in a debate. That's what. Okay, I'm just clarifying.
Hang on. We can move past it. Okay. The thing is that
if
we're talking about
my balls about every little word.
No problem. But if we're talking about the idea of the mind,
absurd about it. Why I think it's absurd is because we're talking about what makes you the King of France, and I'm saying it's not based on your own self-identity. And your comeback to that was like, well, sure, like if you feel like the King of France and you have an army of 6 million people at your disposal, you can make yourself the King of France. Sure, but again, what made you the King of France is not your self-identity. What made you the King of France was that you took it by conquest. So it is
it was bestowed on you, right?
Your own self-identity makes you the King of France. But it is
or
the
it was bestowed.
And like,
hang on.
Definitionally,
bro, 1 point at a time.
One point at a time.
Just let's stay with this.
All right.
Okay. Is it so? If it's bestowed upon you, this means other people recognize you as this thing, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens?
Right,
so what happens? Yeah. So what happens if those people?
Andrew, say that again. You cut out.
Andrew,
say it again.
Anyway, what happens? Yeah. What happens if people do not recognize you as being this thing? Are you that thing? Are you the King of France if people don't recognize you as the King of France, regardless of your self-identity of believing you're the King of France?
So it depends on the nature of the category in question. For the King of France, no, but for gender, yes. Just like for your favorite music or whatever.
What would be the distinction?
If I consider myself a fan of the band Gorillaz, but I've never been to their concerts, I've never bought their albums or whatever, but I consider myself a Gorillaz fan. And you say, well, like, how can I know that you're really a Gorillaz fan if you don't have any receipts, you never bought any of their music or whatever? But it's an identity of mine. It's not that other people can tell me I'm not a Gorillaz fan. It's your own self-identity that is sufficient to categorize you as a fan of a certain musician or band.
Okay, fair enough. So what would make you a Gorillaz fan?
If I consider myself one, even if I listen to all their music or I don't. If I consider myself a Gorillaz fan, then I am.
Sure. So how would you consider somebody else to be a Gorillaz fan?
Basically, like, you could try to gatekeep it and say you're not a real Gorillaz fan if you haven't done X, Y, and Z, or you could just take them at their word if they tell you.
Yeah, but what would actually make them a Gorillaz fan is my question. Yeah, I mean, you're trying to convey something there definitionally with fan, right? So there's something entailed there. There's some activities or something that they must be doing. Like, for instance, if I said I was a fan, if I said,
I wouldn't even say so, because, like,
yeah,
for
really?
example,
Like, does it even make sense if I were to say to you,
let me just give one quick one.
Okay, go ahead.
Andrew, you can give your example, but let me give one quick one first.
Yeah.
There can even be a fan that says, I like really, really hate Gorillaz music. I really hate even listening to it, but I'm still a fan. I still am looking forward to what their next album could be. Like, that you could even hate the music and still consider yourself a fan. And it would be valid.
So if I were to say that I was a Stephen King fan, but never read a single Stephen King book, never listened to a single thing he said, never watched a single movie, and somebody else called me a liar, would you agree with him?
I would say you're a weird fan, but if you're a Stephen King fan just based off vibes alone, that's valid, dude. Whatever. I wouldn't really care. I'm not gonna gatekeep you whether or not you're a fan.
Yeah, but what would make the person? What would make them the person calling them a liar wrong?
If the other person does consider themselves to be a fan of Stephen King.
Yeah. What would make them wrong?
Okay, so it sounds like you've just been basically defeated by analogy at this point.
What would make them wrong?
I just told you, if the other person doesn't identify as a fan of Stephen King, then they
No. That's not my question. My question was the person who
that
calls
doesn't agree with your fucking
the person who calls them a liar. What makes them wrong?
Yeah. I'm sorry, you might have cut off at the end. You said the person
who calls them a liar. So if I'm a Stephen King fan, I read all the books, I watch all the movies, all this. Somebody else does none of that, calls themselves a Stephen King fan, I call them a liar. What makes my statement that they're a liar untrue?
The fact that the other person identifies as a Stephen King fan.
Okay, well then the fact that the other person identifies as the King of France.
Andrew, let me explain this. You said I was going to have time to explain. The criteria that is sufficient to categorize somebody as a fan of Stephen King is whether or not they identify as a fan of Stephen King. That's the only necessary criteria.
Why is that the only necessary criteria?
That's just definitionally what makes you a fan of something is whether.
No. Okay. Well, then show me the definition which states that.
All right, man. I'll go hunt down a dictionary for the word fan over here. 15%.
Well, I mean, what does fan convey? Doesn't it? Aren't you trying to equate some information there?
Sure, but as I already pointed out, you can even hate the music and still consider yourself to be a fan of them.
Yeah, but don't we falsify claims by if the claim doesn't reach the threshold for the criteria of the thing we're pointing to, then the claim is false. Yep. So if fan is indicating, stop, bro. I just let you go. Stop talking, bro.
Let him go, Grayson.
My turn. I just got done explaining this to you, but I'm going to do it again. So if that's the way that you falsify a claim, okay, if fan just means anybody who identifies as a fan, then how can fan mean anything? Because I can just identify as being a fan of whatever. And anybody can identify as, you can almost make any claim as just a form of self-ID, and then it becomes unfalsifiable. So, for instance, you could never say somebody was a fake Christian. You could never say that somebody was a fake Satan worshiper. How could you ever do that? It becomes circular.
Oh no! Oh, boo-hoo! I took away your ability to gatekeep other people's identities. Oh no!
No. You took away the ability for words to mean stuff.
Wait! Wait! I'll let you go here. It is arbitrary what people are fans of. People say fans of stupid stuff all the time. I'm a fan of mustard. I'm a fan of this door handle. Whatever. Like, yeah, that's all true. They can.
Yeah, but what are they conveying there? But they're conveying something there.
Yeah, it means that they probably like those things, but even if they dislike them, they can still consider them a fan.
Right, but how could you be a fan?
It's an arbitrary categorization.
Well, okay, then how could you be a fan of the taste of mustard if you've never tasted mustard?
I don't know. Maybe you could be a fan of how it's described.
You don't know. You don't know how you could be a fan of mustard if you've never tasted mustard.
13% battery left. Is this really how you spend the conversation?
Okay, Andrew, I want to
an analogy, and you're asking me about mustard.
Grayson, let's go back to the question that I think is really important here. Is Andrew asked, how could you say the person who says, no, you're not a fan, how could they be lying? right? Because your distinction here is that there
I
is no
gave you
real
the answer
distinction of a
multiple
fan. So what is the answer again? How do you know? How could you say the person's lying when they say no, you're not a fan? How do you know? How do you know they're wrong?
They are wrong if they say the other person's not a fan. They are wrong if the other person identifies as a fan.
Well, then you have just defeated your entire worldview, and this is what I was getting at, right? So your whole worldview is now destroyed, because if all a sports fan is somebody who identifies as being one, that makes everybody a gatekeeper of what one is. So it's impossible to say one person's lying about the other one being a fan, because their own definition of whatever it is has to be true. Therefore, if you say you're not a woman based on my criteria of a woman, there's no fucking way for you to call me a liar.
We can take this one more thing, Grayson. I want to take this into another more immediate scenario. Let's say, because you say you're a male and you're a cis man, right, Grayson? So let's say there is a university that's offering scholarship to women.
Before you start that, can I respond to what Andrew said really quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, if all of us are making let me give you the argument. Let me give you the argument. I want to make sure
it's funny
that
how my
you get it
response
right.
to Andrew sounds an awful lot like Andrew. Like, isn't that weird?
I just want to make sure you get I just want to make sure you get it right. So I'm just going to repeat it real quick. If the identity of a fan is whatever they claim it is, you cannot call another fan a liar for saying you are not one, because, like you said, it is arbitrary. Correct?
You can still determine whether or not they're lying. There are other physiological, empirical tests about whether or not somebody's lying. Other factors that betray if somebody's telling the truth or not. You can tell if somebody's lying physiologically, biometrically.
But lies are based on intent. If they mean it, if they mean you're not a fan, right? They mean that, then they're not lying. And you can't say that they're lying based on criteria. So what is actually wrong with them saying you're lying? What is wrong with that?
No, ultimately, I do think that, it's shitty to call people out as saying you're not a real fan if they say they are a fan. And I think
that's nice, but what makes them a lie? What makes it a lie?
I think that you shouldn't gatekeep if people are fans. I think that you shouldn't gatekeep people's own gender identity.
That's nice. What makes it a lie? What makes it a lie for one fan to tell another fan they're not a real fan? What makes that a lie?
Because what designates what is the sufficient criteria to designate a one as a fan, much similar to gender, is whether or not you identify as a fan.
Yeah, sure, but however you identify as a fan is going to have
over and over again.
Hang on, no, we're not.
This is my turn. Hold on, Grayson.
My turn.
Hold on, Grayson.
It's my turn,
Grayson,
bro.
just engage. Let him
so
talk.
no, this is not correct, because whatever your identity is, self-identity of fans, going to have criteria. If somebody else doesn't meet that criteria, and you say it's arbitrary, so you can make up whatever criteria you want. If I say you're not a fan, how could I be lying? How?
Because the sufficient criteria is whether or not they identify as a fan. We're going in circles because you don't understand the points I'm making.
Well,
if you want to ask your question, because now I'm at
that's totally incoherent. How the hell does your cell phone in 10 minutes lose 12% battery?
I just want to point out, Grayson.
I don't know, man, because I'm live streaming. I'm in the middle of nowhere, Idaho, right now on a road trip.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I got this clear. You can come up with whatever your definition of fan is, and you are that thing. However, telling somebody else that they're not that thing because they don't meet that definite criteria, you're lying about that. Can you even explain how that's coherent?
Yeah, I just did. I've explained
Do it again.
Like,
use small words.
A fan is a process of their own self-identity as one. So for you to say they're not when they identify as one would make you a liar. You should just
but you identifying as a fan has criteria.
Hey, Andrew, how about just generally you don't gatekeep people's identities? Okay, we can call.
Well, how about we do? Because words mean stuff. So moving back to this though. If I still don't understand. You got to explain it again.
Words do mean stuff, and sex and gender mean two different things.
One at a time, Grayson.
Just over talking and spurting. So again, if I identify as a sports fan and because I self-ID as that thing, I am that thing, and my criteria for what makes you one is that you go and buy the fans merch. If you say that you're a sports fan, but you don't buy the fans merch, so I say you're not a sports fan, how in the world could I be wrong?
Because I consider myself a sports fan, and that's all that's
So
required.
only the person who makes the ID claim is the person who's in the right. That's it.
Yep.
So the other criteria then. So there's no possible way you realize this. This is now you're in a logical contradiction. There's no possible way for you to ever make a claim based on self ID that the other person is lying or is incorrect, even if your self ID has the standards for what that thing is.
Because that's true. Because normal, healthy people don't go around telling other people that they are this and that, and don't go around dictating the identities of others. So you shouldn't do that. Those are
all assertions. Those are just assertions. So back to this though.
Okay.
If you self ID as a sports fan, and your claim is that what makes you a sports fan is that you collect memorabilia, and another person does not collect memorabilia, and you say, okay, you're a liar, how could you be wrong if it's based on your self-ID? How?
Well, maybe to their definition, you're not a true fan, but they don't have a right
to your definition, they're
whether
not.
or not you're a fan.
So it's arbitrary.
So neither one could be lying. So then therefore,
Grayson,
hang on. Let me finish this, and then I'm done. I'll hop the call. So then what we've determined here is that there's no way for you to tell me that I'm lying when I say that a person's not a fucking woman, you idiot. I just wanted to let you know that. And with that, I will dip out. Have a wonderful day, you stupid fuck.
Oh, great. I'm glad that the true colors come out. You tried to be nice, but you just had to get a little bit out at the very end. I see how it is. But
Grayson, thanks for entertaining that.
If you think that you've demonstrated something with that, if you think that Andrew's demonstrated something with that about whether or not you can have a true fan, it just sounds like a no true Scotsman fallacy.
I would say just
identities for them.
Grayson, if it's the case that the standards are both arbitrary for two different people, then you should just bite the bullet and say, well, you can't say there's no way of saying that they're lying. I mean, that's the way to go about it, is just say, if there's two standards that are competing, but they're both arbitrary and created as social constructs, there really is no standard to tell the person who says, no, you're not a fan, to say they're actually lying, because they're not actually lying from their view. That's what Andrew demonstrated.
But
they're not actually lying.
Jimbob, like two people, like one person accurately stating their gender identity and another person, or the same person, unaccurately stating it, are going to have recognizably, empirically, verifiably different brain states. You could tell who's lying and who's not if you had a sufficiently sensitive instrument.
Right. Well, that's just appealing to some sort of mystery or ignorance that we don't have the tech for. But let's just say this, Grayson. Someone says someone's a biological man. They're super muscular. They don't wear women's clothing. They don't present as a woman at all. They identify as a woman. Okay? They just declare it so. Now, are you saying that someone like me, right, when I'm walking my daughter in public and she sees what looks like to her as a male, who she identifies categorically as a man, dressed in a suit, strong, wide shoulders, has a sports team pin on, all the shit you listed as something that's categorically man oriented. When she says, "Daddy, look at that man," are you saying she's lying? No, she's just probably mistaken, and understandably so. And if that person heard that and said, actually, I identify as a woman, then you could, it depends. Like, if you want to respect other people, then you could teach your daughter that and say, look, that's how they identify. It's a nice thing to do to use those pronouns. If telling my daughter to identify that man to other people. Hold on. No. If I tell my daughter to identify that as a man, but that occurs to her as a lie, why should she do it?
If she wants to be nice and respectful to other people around them.
So people should lie for other people's feelings? So what makes their feelings better than the feelings we get for having to lie? Why is one more valuable than the other, Grayson?
It just depends. It just depends on whether or not you want to raise your daughter to be a conscientious person.
That didn't answer the question. Are they being conscientious of my daughter forcing her? Hold on, Grayson, listen to me. Stop interrupting me. I asked you a question. Are they being conscientious of what goes on internally for myself and my daughter and people who think like me to force us to lie right? I'm asking you a question, Grayson. Why is the feelings of the man who's dressed like a man, who's a biological male, saying, call me a woman, what makes their feelings more important than the internal conflict we experience by lying? Tell me what's distinguishable about the other that makes it more valuable that we bend the knee. Tell me.
Look, if you are in such internal anguish at just the thought of properly using
that's an assertion.
pronouns,
It doesn't answer the question. His phone must have died.
So deep,
where is he?
That it's such
that
a
doesn't
big
answer
issue
the
for you.
question.
You know what? You can have a little special boy, little hall pass, little exemption just for Jimbob because he feels just too strongly just having to use people's pronouns that they want to be identified as.
Grayson, can you now swap everything you said about me and make it about the trans person who wants me to speak in a certain way? For good faith.
You're the whiny little snowflake. No. At the end of the day, you're the one who's being whiny.
Okay, so asking someone to use pronouns and language that doesn't comport with their internal reality framework, that's considered a lie from their ideological and religious standpoint. You're saying they're the whiny babies. I asked you kindly to just restate that, but use it for the other person. Listen, Grayson, I'll tell you how it sounds. Are these people so petty and so weak and their internal structure is so broken that they have to force people, and if they don't affirm their identity that's internalized only, that's grounded in nothing but their own mind, are you saying that they can't live without people affirming their own internal identities?
See, here's the difference, Jimbob, is that...
What's the difference? I asked for that first.
People like you... I'm literally going into it. You don't interrupt me. I let you just talk, man. Let me answer here. Because I only have 4% here. So, look, people like you... I'll just make this my conclusion statement here. People like you are actually not undergoing all of this internal suffering at just trying to use pronouns that people identify as. Really? Whereas trans people, there is actual genuine suffering that trans people go through in society. Gender dysphoria is an actual terrible amount of suffering that people go to.
Right.
So if you actually
is gender dysphoria delusion? Is gender dysphoria delusional? Is gender dysphoria? Okay, great. Grayson.
And
Grayson, I love your speech. I love your speech.
Or a bigot about it.
I love your speech, but is gender dysphoria a delusion?
Called a bigot and an asshole.
Is gender dysphoria? You're coping. You're coping. Is gender dysphoria a delusion?
Oh, I'm coping.
Is gender dysphoria a delusion?
I don't know, man. It's in the DMSM.
Okay, great.
It actually is a psychological state.
Okay, great.
And trauma.
Are there people who see things, dude? Are there people who see things that don't exist?
Yeah.
Okay, so when someone says there's something over there, now should I affirm that there's something over there, or should I affirm to them that they're just imagining that it's okay? Which one should I do?
It depends on the patient. Sometimes they say that you're supposed to just acknowledge their delusions. Sometimes you can point it out. Sometimes you're supposed to go along with it. It depends on the person, I'm told.
Okay, so in this event,
I don't know,
how do you know?
But honestly, man, I'm at 3% battery right now.
Wait, go till it dies.
Conclusion. Is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah, one more question. If it depends on the person, how are we supposed to know whether it's harmful, helpful, or neutral to affirm someone else's internal delusion? From my point of view, teach my kids to affirm something that doesn't comport with their framework or their religious views. How are you supposed to know, depending on the person, when you're supposed to entertain their views or not, right, Grayson?
Well, you could either listen to other people or you could listen to the science, which shows that it does make an impact whenever trans people are validated by the social, people, the relationships around them.
How do you... Dude, that doesn't answer the question. I asked you, how do you know when it doesn't?
I said it.
I asked you, how do you know when it doesn't?
The other person, I said, listen to other people. The other person could tell you.
That's what's in question,
dude. Be respectful of other people around you.
Okay, let's do this one more time.
A controversial statement. Just be respectful of others.
No, you be respectful of me, who doesn't want to affirm something that occurs to me as a lie. You don't respect me, Grayson. You're a hypocrite.
You guys are such little... not a lie.
It is a lie from my internal framework. You even from your physicalist view, Grayson, if everything's reduced to internal frameworks,
Sure.
just like Andrew demonstrated,
No, I
you can't
acknowledge that.
Listen, you can't tell me I'm lying
I acknowledge
if everything I'm saying is an internal conflict to affirm something that I don't believe in. You're telling me I should.
I agree.
Should I?
I agree that within your moral framework, you might consider that it's a lie. But the thing is that you're incorrect and can be proven and demonstrably so empirically.
No, I can't. No, because it's arbitrary, just like the fan
No,
example.
it can't. Great freaking comeback.
You can't prove to someone's a man or a woman. You can't prove it.
It's in their brains. It's being generated by their
You
brains.
can't. How do you prove someone's a man or a woman, Grayson? It's a social construct. You
You
can't
look
find
in
a
their
social
brain.
construct. How do you comport a brain activity with a social construct and say that it's true?
Because it's being generated by the brain. Your concept of gender identity is currently, right now, being generated in your brain, and it can be measured.
What is it comporting with that's real such that you can say it's true out in the world?
Like, it is in the category, like the gender identity currently being generated is of the category of male or woman or in between, or man or woman or in between, or whatever.
I'll
It's
ask
the
this
actual
again.
nature of that pattern.
Dude, no, the data in the brain is referring to something external in the world you call a social construct, how men and women are expected to behave, dress, wear, how they stand, all this stuff, right? I'm saying, what is it in the external world that you're saying the neurological system is reflecting? If the thing that it's reflecting is a total fiction construct.
Let me explain. So I know you're not going to like this, but please bear with me for just 1 second with it, okay? Because we acknowledge that the thing that made something red versus blue or whatever is the frequency of light, and that's an objective thing or whatever. But the thing that makes the gender identity like man or woman is that it's a slightly different pattern of the circuitry in the brain generating that gender. So it's like the actual characteristic, the physical shape of the pattern is different between a gender identity that's being generated for a man or versus a woman, in the same way that the frequency is different for blue versus red.
Okay, great. So you're saying in the brain there's a physical pattern, and the pattern, you look at it visually and you say that's a man, and you look at another one, it says that's a woman, right? I'm saying, what are you referencing out in the world to know to label that a man or a woman?
Like the social construct in society.
So brain activity.
You would basically establish a sample size of like known men, known women based on the cultural situation, and that would be your two baselines that you would then compare that brain against.
That's great. So look, I'll give you a little fun example here. Someone goes in, they get their brain activity in America.
My phone is about to die too.
Okay, great. Right. Okay, great. So the person gets their brain activity. The doctor says, you're a man. We looked at the brain activity. In our hypothetical of going to another country, they go to another country. The doctors in that country look at the same exact pattern, and you're saying that it could be not a man in the other country?
Sure, yeah. If the country is different, then the baseline is going to be different.
And
it could be more similar to the other country's baseline.
Yeah. Okay. So there's no actual standard to refer
things
to.
are different in different countries?
Do you?
Is this a new thing that you've never come across before? That concepts can have different connotations in different countries?
You have no
really?
idea what you have no idea what you just did to your own position. But thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, Grayson. Come back anytime. Okay.
People know that different concepts are different in different countries. Like this is very common.
Cool.
Anybody that travels knows this.
Great. So two doctors, right?
Well, hey, it was a pleasure talking with you, Jimbob. Real pleasure as always.
Yeah. No problem.